All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear me well. I'm coming to you from the Spark by Hilton here in wonderful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This is RickCast. I am the aforementioned Rick, and in a sea of vapid and pretty annoying podcasts, you might be watching and listening to another one. I hope everybody had a wonderful February 5th, I believe it is. My guy Mark's not here, so my official guy who lets me know what day it is. And it's the 6th. See, when Mark's not here, I don't know what's going on. But it's February 6th. It's 2025. And I just got off the road. I got off the road at 5:50, driving from the Austin area here to Alabama. It was a fine, very uneventful drive. Actually, very relaxing for the most part. And thank you for all of you who were hoping for safe passage because it worked out pretty well. So thumbs up on that. I got 4 stories for you tonight. And so we're going to get right to them. There's not going to be many hot takes or anything like that. We're going to make sure that we get a show in for you guys because we're not going to have one tomorrow because I will be in North Carolina and I have to be at dinner. And then the following day is the conference, the Catholic Men's Conference, which if you're still in the mid-Atlantic area or even somewhere as far away as Alabama, you can get to the Catholic Men's Conference by going to Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas.org. I believe that's it. Let's see. Nope, I don't know where it is. But Catholic Men's Conference is if you type in Catholic Men's Conference, you'll be able to, Catholic Men of the Carolinas.org, Catholic Men of the Carolinas.org, and you will be able to join us if you want, because there's still time to do so. And I think that would be a pretty awesome thing if you decided to take the chance to do so. So let's see. It's going to be a little bit of a rocky show tonight because I'm working on the laptop. This one doesn't have any of the presets that I like. So we're going to get through it, though. And I appreciate you guys, hanging around and waiting for me. So like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all the fun things. I see you guys out on Rumble. I see you guys out on X as well. You're all there. We're here, and it's going to be a good night. So let's take a look at what is going on. So, and by the way, I apologize. I'm working off the Hilton Wi-Fi, so I might not be around that much, but I'm here. So we're gonna plow right through the sucker. So the first story up of the day is going to be the Hilton Wi-Fi. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I know I'm kind of shaky in and out, but we're going to get to it. Let's get to our first story of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. This is going to be from thehill.com, our first political story, and that is Marco Rubio. Little Marco. Little Marco. There he is. He's right there. Let me get where I want to be. I don't want to be there. I want to be here. There it is. Little Marco Rubio is deciding to skip the G20 summit amid tensions with South Africa. And of course, this is a big deal for the left, simply because South Africa, the Rainbow Coalition, all that kind of stuff, it has always been this, I don't know, city on a hill, if you want, when you're looking at the uber hope of what the left dreams about. White people being driven out and being replaced by the oppressed minority, which has run the country into the ground for the better part of 25, 30 years, ever since the shift happened. I'm not saying apartheid is a good thing, but the complete pendulum swing to the other way has not proven to be as successful as some on the left would have you hope to believe. And this is all part of a more aggressive policy from Trump and the State Department, because you would have outcry about things, and you would have an outcry about what's happening in different parts of the world and why we should not be a part of it, or we should not have to deal with it, or whatever the case may be. But the fact is that a country like South Africa, which is very talent. It's got a lot of. It's very resource dense. It's massive. Um, it is doing very bad things to certain segments of the population, and I think it needs to be addressed. It's been swept under the rug by the left. Lauren Southern, who I can't stand, actually had a halfway decent documentary because she went through a phase where she pretended she was a director. She did like 3 films, and then she was like, "Look, I'm a documentary." No, 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 you're a honey trap. So move on. But she actually did do a pretty good documentary in that regard. And so now we're seeing Trump and a more pro, I don't want to say colonial, but a pro Western value administration, unlike Obama and unlike Biden, who continually apologized for the West and what the West has built. Um, they may not be condemning or they may not be approving things like apartheid, but they can also step back and say, hey, this whole thing you're doing now, post post apartheid, is not working either. The complete and utter vengeance that you're going after the Boer population, the white South African population, it's not helpful. It's not gotten you anywhere. In fact, the place is even worse. And if you want to believe that and you're on X, you need to follow the account of a guy named K9 Reaper. He is a guy who is participating in patrols. He's a guy who's trying to help clean up the communities of South Africa and it's an all volunteer service that works with the police departments. They're literally trying to do the best they can to um, combat the crime that's taking place there, things like copper theft and so forth. So it's interesting to see that the State Department is leading the charge. So this is from thehill.com. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced he would skip the G20 summit slated to be held in Johannesburg amidst tensions between Trump, tech billionaire Elon Musk, and the host country South Africa. It's also important to know at this point, Elon Musk is a South African. So who knows how much impact he has had on this decision. Quote, I will not be attending the G20 summit in Johannesburg. Rubio wrote in a Wednesday post on X, South Africa is doing very bad things. Expropriating, you know what I'm saying, private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equity, and sustainability. In other words, DEI and climate change. Rubio has added that his job is to advance Americanism. And those things are on display in the country of South Africa. It's very anti-West. It's very steeped in DEI. It's very steeped in a lot of things that we would look down on any other country for doing. But since South Africa seems to be the Rainbow Coalition and it's held in such high regard, it's kind of like hands off. Rubio added, South African president, I'm not going to be able to say his name, Cyril Ramaphosa, signed a controversial law late last month. Controversial is a nice way to put it, allowing the state to seize land without compensation and hoped of addressing the wealth and racial discrepancies. Now, they've been trying to do this ever since apartheid ended. There's been a continual push by the radical government that's in charge to address the wealth disparity, and they're not letting it be done naturally over the course of time. They're trying to do it via the barrel of a gun, and it's having absolutely devastating effects down there. And then on Sunday, Trump threatened to cut off U.S. funding to South Africa, accusing the African nation of confiscating land, which they are doing, and treating certain classes of people very badly. He wrote on Truth Social that a massive human rights violation, at a minimum, is happening for all to see. Although he didn't give exact details. And even if he did, the Hill would probably not tell you. The United States won't stand for it. We will act, Trump wrote in the Post. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until full investigation of the situation has been completed. Now, South Africa is a country that experiences rolling blackouts. Their infrastructure is absolute trash. And what they continue to do in a very lefty tactic, they continue to blame the Boer, the white population, and apartheid. Even though, let me see how long it's been since apartheid ended. How long? I'm going to do this all on the fly tonight, folks. Even more so. Since apartheid ended, even with my bad spelling. It's been 30 years since apartheid ended. That was in 2024, so it'll be 31 years since apartheid ended in South Africa. And the infrastructure has fallen apart. They're experiencing rolling blackouts. Crime is at an all-time high. The growing disparities. All you have to do is follow a guy like K9 Reaper, like I said on X, to show you how the society has collapsed because it's lost faith in its government. Because the government's too busy trying to exact revenge on a population of people that are not in power anymore, and they do not have any legal recourse because they can never get into a position via the current political system. Nobody, the population of South Africa will never vote for a white government again because they're constantly told that the reason they're in the squalor that they're in is because of apartheid, and to vote for them again would be a return to that. And so it's absolutely despicable what's happening here. Ramsana, in response, said South Africa government has not confiscated any land. That is a very legalistic way of saying yet. We have not confiscated any land. And if they haven't at that point, they're legally correct. But does the bill give them the ability to do so? Yes, it does. They just haven't done it yet. It's like, I haven't robbed anything yet. Legally, that's true. Spirit of the law versus letter of the law. South African president argued the recent adopted law is, quote, not a confiscation instrument, but a constitutionally mandated legal process that ensures public access to land in equitable and just manner as guided by the Constitution. That's a lot of googly gob to say, you have something we want and we're going to take it. Something happened very similar in Zimbabwe, where the white farmers were driven out because of past racial tensions. The problem is, and this is just how it was, the white farmers were the only ones that knew how to actually grow food. So much so that the farmers were invited back to Zimbabwe because they don't have any food, because they don't know how to work the land. And we're going to see a very similar situation happen in South Africa because their solution is just, we're taking the land for us. Do you know how to work it? No, they were never they never adapted the skills. They never wanted to learn the skills. They always blamed the Boer about that. And so now we're in that. South Africa, like the United States and other countries, has always had expropriation laws that balance the need for public usage of land and the protection of rights of property owners. I mean, he's trying to say it sounds like eminent domain. We look forward to engaging with the Trump administration over our land reform policy. Musk, a close ally who was born in South Africa, chimed in asking Ramaphosa, why do you have an openly racist ownership law? Yeah, so Elon Musk is definitely in the ear of President Trump on this one, which is fine. I think the people of South Africa, the Boer population of South Africa has been absolutely terrified with this whole thing. And I don't like Lauren Southern. I do not like her. I think she's everything wrong with the supposed e-girl, the conservative trad girl movement. But the fact is that her documentary on the white South Africans and what's going on with them, I think everybody needs to watch. It's on YouTube. It's like an hour and a half long, and it's really well done, showing the struggles that they go through. And this law is only going to exacerbate said issue. So I think it's good that the Trump administration is standing up for this, right? And this is in a history where the United States steps back from these things. Like, we didn't participate in the Rwandan genocide. We didn't want to get involved with that, but we got involved in Somalia, and of course for different interests here, there, and everywhere. And this is a very easy thing to do. We just won't go. And that sends a message. And at least the message is being sent that we are keeping an eye out. And yes, I think the United States can do something as simple as say, hey, we're not going to attend because we think that law is, it's not a just law on your people. And at least it gets the dialogue out there. And now the rest of the world has to actually look at this law and has to look at the impact of this law and what it's going to do to a certain segment of the population. And I think that's a good thing. And I'm good with the Trump administration doing this, because right now all they're doing is saying, hey, we're not going to go. And that alone is bringing attention to the issue. All right, folks, you're watching RickCast here from the beautiful Spark by Hilton Hotel here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'm on my way to the Catholic Men's Conference of Carolinas, which will take place on Saturday. We're going to have a dinner Friday night. There's still time to get tickets if you're in the Mid-Atlantic area or in the South, or even up in a little bit in the North area. If you want to join us, myself, the Bishop of Charleston, Enoch, John Frankman, the gentleman who runs the Catholic for Rednecks account, Rob and Anthony from Avoiding Babylon will be there. They will be there to hang out with us. They're just not presenting, but they will be available for the VIP section of the program. So if you're thinking about going, definitely grab your tickets now while you can and join us. I think it'll be a really good time, and I look forward to seeing all of you there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our second story of the day here as we kind of fly through here as I try to, I'm not saying I'm tired, sleepy, but it is a little tiring, but that's okay. Let's see. Let's get to our second story because this one is not set up the way I wanted it to be. This one's going to be an interesting one. I think we're going to have some fun with this. We don't usually talk about, we do pop culture, but we don't get like this far into pop culture. And so there's been this story. Actually, we're going to go back to the reader. I don't want to see all that. There's been a story that's been percolating around Hollywood for the last couple months. And I've watched it on other shows, and I've seen the reaction within the industry to this story. And it involves one of the most powerful couples in Hollywood and the effects of Me Too, and really how an actor can destroy an actual project. And it's involving Blake Lively and a guy named Justin Baldoni. Now, to get this understanding, Blake Lively is married to Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni is a huge male feminist, for lack of a better term. And they made this movie, and apparently the movie didn't do too badly. But it started when Justin Baldoni, who directed a movie called It Ends With Us. Now I have notes, so stick with me here. Even through the poor internet connection, stick with me on this. There is a movie called It Ends With Us. It was released last year, I believe, and it did moderately well. It actually came out around the time of Deadpool and Wolverine, so it was a little weird that they came out back to back. And so it's based on a book. There's a book called It Ends With Us. Justin Baldoni apparently read it, or like one of his friends read it, or Oprah recommended it. I don't know. And then Justin Baldoni opted the rights to it. A lot of people do this. They'll opt the rights to a book, to a film, or a comic book, or any kind of intellectual property to bring to the screen. Happens all the time. In fact, that's what most novels and a lot of people, when they write their books, their bestseller books and all these other things, their stories of whatever, their big hope is to get it optioned. That's their big hope. They want to get it optioned to a film. That's like the big thing, because you're going to get a nice payout and maybe some royalties on the back end. So the person who wrote the book opted it to Justin Baldoni, and that's pretty much where his life ended. Not literally, he is still alive at this point, but it's been all downhill for Justin since then. And there are a few books in recent years that have come as a bigger cultural phenomenon as Colleen Hoover's novel. It sold 20 million copies. And it became an internet sensation on the TikTok. Big deal. Once it's on the TikTok, you've made it big. So Blake Lively, if you don't know, she's married to Ryan Reynolds. She was big in Gossip Girls back in the day. Never watched the show. I only know her in passing from a couple films and the fact that she's married to Ryan Gosling. My wife knows all this. I wish she was on to help me with that. But she was cast as the main character. And a lot of people like to do fan casts. And, hey, if the book was optioned, this person would be great for it. So when she was optioned or announced as the lead, everybody went, oh, that's actually pretty daggone good, because it's as close as you could get to how the main character looked. And people, based on her acting chops, said, oh, she's probably going to be pretty good as far as bringing the role to life, which is what the actor's job is. Let's see. The young woman who grew up witnessing domestic abuse and winds up in the same position years later. That's essentially the spoiler alert for It Ends With Us. That's the odds of the book. So Lily, who's a florist in Boston, she navigates a complicated love triangle between her charming but abusive boyfriend, Ryan Kincaid, played by Jane the Virgin's Justin Baldoni, the big male feminist, and a compassionate first love, Atlas Corrigan. Golly, you knew a woman wrote that. What the hell's name is that? Brian Skedler. Released last August, became a success, bringing in $350 million globally. For a film that big, it's probably really great. I want to know, what is the budget of It Ends With Us? Let's see. It Ends With Us. Let's see. So the budget of it, let's see what they say. 25 million. That's what they announced. 25 million. Usually the tip with marketing is, they usually double it. So let's even say it's 50 million. So that movie made a pretty good profit on the back end. Everybody wins, right? Blake Lively's in a big movie. Justin Baldoni has now directed a big movie. Everybody's happy, except everything behind the scenes of this film was apparently a disaster. And it ends up kind of like, for the dudes watching, you remember the film Tropic Thunder and how the film was an absolute mess in the background and all the stars are just absolutely nuts and everything. We're kind of seeing the same thing here with this. And it brings up this kind of drama that sometimes surpasses the film. Rumors of a feud between the director Baldoni and Blake Lively were swirling even as the film was being released. In December of last year, Blake Lively decided to sue Justin Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment and starting a smear campaign against her. Now, Blake Lively can easily be described as somebody who lives in the Hollywood bubble. And she has it very well off. She's, her and her husband, Ryan Reynolds is a billionaire. His films do well. They're fine. They don't have to worry about anything. And I think they're both Canadian, but he's Canadian. So that's another part of it. Huge libs. She still thinks in 2024, 2025 that the Me Too movement still exists, even though most people pinpoint it back to, folks, I watch a lot of stuff, pin it back to the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial as really the unofficial ending of the Me Too movement, because Amber Heard is psycho and she used it to her advantage. And so people were kind of shocked. They said, okay, so the movie did well. She's getting accolades from it. Why would she come out of nowhere? Now, if the movie bombed, right? If the movie didn't do well, it would make sense that Blake Lively, fingers point all over the place. Happens every time. It's almost more fun to watch these people like rats off a sinking ship when a film bombs. People start pointing fingers. It's even funnier. There was a film called Madam Web last year. That film tanked. Everybody started running for the hills. The only one who didn't was the she's the blonde. I don't know her name. She was just like, yeah, I took the part so I could make money. And she came out scot-free because people love it when actors are that bold. They're just like, yeah, I took the money. I took the job for a paycheck. Most of the time, the American public, like I said last night with my Jurassic Park trailer breakdown, I don't fault actors for taking money. And if they're like, yeah, I took the role because I need to get paid, good for you. Sydney Sweeney, thank you. She's like, yeah, I don't know anything about the movie. I just took it for a paycheck. You know what? We like that because we're in America and we like money. Anyway, but that's the opposite here. This film does well. Everybody should be happy. So why is Blake Lively, after the film comes out, film came out in August, why is she slapping a lawsuit on the director? Well, for a film about domestic abuse, the press tour for It Ends With Us, this is kind of like the background of it, was probably not what you have expected. There were pink carpets, flowers galore, and the promotion of Lively's new hair care brand and her husband's gin company. Not things you would really expect for like a movie about domestic abuse. You would probably be like, oh, that's not really a great idea. At the London premiere, the press was told to keep questions fun and lighthearted because when we're talking about domestic abuse, fun and lighthearted are the first two things that have come to it. With one event organizer telling to steer away from questions about domestic abuse, the film's message, which is weird because actors usually love to talk about the message of their film and how great they are and all this nonsense, yin yang, blah blah, all that. One of her remarks made at a New York premiere, quote, you are so much more than just a survivor or a victim, unquote, sparked backlash because, once again, Blake Lively lives in a bubble. She's well off. She's probably never experienced domestic abuse. Has she had bad relationships? Probably, but never experienced domestic abuse. Because if you do, you don't say stuff like that. You don't kind of wave off. People don't wave off domestic abuse. That's one of the few things that can end your NFL career. That's how serious we as a society should take domestic abuse. But she's like, oh yeah, fun and lighthearted, and you're so much more than that. And people are like, what in the hell are you? What are you doing? Domestic abuse filer Ashley Page criticized Ms. Lively's language and told the BBC that Lively was promoting the film like it's the sequel to Barbie. Not really what we want to talk about. It's like if Barbie was promoted as Barbie and then they were like, hey, look at this, domestic abuse. And it's like, whoa, what are we going? And so usually the director, especially for a film that does $350 million globally, is around on these press tours because everybody wants to ask him, hey, what was you did you read the book? What was your inspiration? How's this going? Completely absent, nowhere to be found. People are like, hey, why is the director of this film, which is a story about domestic violence, why would he do that? Why didn't a female do it? Why would blah 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 blah? He wasn't anywhere to be found. He's the director and the lead, the male lead to her, nowhere. The pair did no interviews together during the press tour, and at the London premiere, which Baldoni didn't attend, was warned by Lively's team, the writer of this article, to not ask any questions about him. Though, even though he's the director and he's the lead, he doesn't exist. It's all about Blake Lively at this point. Internet sleuths, because that's what we all are, also spotted that cast members, including Lively and author Hoover, did not follow Baldoni on social media, because that's a big deal. Neither Lively or Baldwin addressed the rumors, and then that led to a smear campaign based on the film's press tour, where Baldoni hired a crisis manager to try and figure this out. As you can tell, this whole thing goes way off the reservation. Like, and she's just trying to level the suit against him. There were all kinds of things about her changing the way the film was supposed to be. She wanted more expensive shoes. She accused him of fat shaming her at some point. Like, we're supposed to be talking about domestic violence. This film's about domestic violence, and we're supposed to be talking about that. Why in the hell are we talking about your $5,000 shoes? Everybody's just like, what are you doing, lady? And that angers Ryan Reynolds because that's her husband, and he's trying to come in to defend her, and then, that doesn't look good either. So the point of that is to give you a little bit of background to this story here from TMZ.com, which states, as soon as I find it, Taylor Swift, because, the Swifties will come to the rescue, believes Blake Lively manipulated her in Justin Baldoni's war. Now, this is pretty much a death nail, from what I can tell as a 43-year-old heterosexual male, that this is a death nail to Blake Lively. Taylor Swift feels she was used by Blake Lively in her war with Justin Baldoni and says she resents Blake calling her one of her dragons. So they're going back and forth on these voicemails. And essentially what Blake Lively does in a voicemail is threaten Baldoni when she's not getting her way. This is while the film's in production. She says, I have some dragons, because apparently she's 10 years old and she thinks she's Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. And her dragons are Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds, right? Big industry players that could ruin his career. And she openly threatens him on a voicemail. Everybody heard it. People are dumb. They don't realize that voicemails and text messages pretty much exist. So she says, Taylor Swift is one of my dragons, which one thing you don't do, especially in any industry. And I've actually said this to friends of mine. I don't like taking jobs I don't like, when you're out of work and you need a job, you ask your buddy, hey, do you know anybody? I never like taking jobs off of friends' recommendations personally, because if something ends badly in that job, now I've made my friend look bad. I don't like to do that. I like to do it all on my own. Blake Lively doesn't care. She's going to drag everybody through this. And so now Taylor Swift is like, nah, you shouldn't have done that. She feels she was used by Blake Lively in her war with Justin Baldoni. As you reported earlier, a critical meeting, Blake and Ryan Reynolds' New York City penthouse with Justin to discuss a scene where Blake had to remind or I'm sorry, had rewritten It Ends With Us. Justin said the meeting was super heated and he felt ambushed because Ryan and Taylor showed up. Well-connected source close to Taylor tells TMZ Taylor came to Blake's apartment at the time Blake told her to, not knowing anybody else would be there. So she was pretty much set up. It's another male reference, another movie reference. It's essentially Joe Pesci in Goodfellas when he went to go become a made man. If you haven't seen Goodfellas, I'm sorry, it's a spoiler for the movie. Y'all know what happened to Joe Pesci when he walked into the house to become a made man. That's essentially what Blake Lively did to Justin Baldoni. And so now Blake Lively's on the defensive because this stuff is coming out about how much of a train wreck she was on the set, how much she demanded the script be written to her, the fact that she was tone deaf on the red carpet, taking a film that should have been not an apex or a career definer, but a win, right? Any actor would love to be in a film that makes $350 million. It's awesome. She decided that she's going to take this moment and try to elevate her fame or elevate her status by using the Me Too movement and Taylor Swift to essentially box out a no-name actor. Like Justin Baldoni is not a household name, and smearing this guy and dragging him through the mud and ruining his life. It's not like you took down King Kong. You took down a B, maybe a C-list actor. And this thing is absolutely just crushing her. And so it's interesting to see because culturally, 5 years ago, and I'm going to end on this point. 5 years ago, during the Me Too movement, she would have been riding high. She could have used this to catapult herself up. Culturally, we're at a place where the idea of believe all women doesn't exist anymore. Mark, what day is it? Because I need you here, buddy. What's today's date? My man Mark's in the chat, so he tells me what the date is because I don't know what it is. She misplayed this, and it's coming back to bite her pretty badly. So I guess when we get more of a resolution, we'll cover this here on RickCast because I do want to cover cultural stuff. And even though it seems like it's very dry on the top, it's actually not, because it's a reflection of how we have moved past the believe all women stage to, hey, you know, you can't just drag a guy through the mud because he wouldn't let you buy $5,000 shoes on the set, or because he didn't think, you know, as the director, he needs to be able to tell the lead actor or actress. And that's what I said in my Jurassic Park review and all the other ones, like, hey, it's the director's job to, you know, direct. He can't get pushback because the star, you know, wants to do this. It's essentially the same thing that Joy Taylor's going through in the sports world, where she was having an affair or she was having a relationship with an executive, and she told a friend of hers that she wasn't worried because when she was done with the executive, she would just accuse him of sexual harassment. Essentially, like everything else, that's my man. Just like everything else, the pendulum swinging back, and unfortunately, Blake Lively is on the receiving end of the pendulum swinging against her, which, hey, that's what happens when you live in the bubble. All right, folks, that is our second story of the day here on RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Follow me on X. I got 160 people watching, even though I am at the beautiful Spark by Hilton in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'm a big fan of these kind of hotels. I think it's beautiful. It's going to be great when I fall asleep. And I will, and it will be glorious. But let's get to our next story because we have two stories to go here today. Let's get to our third story of the day. Judge blocks Trump's attempt. Get me back over here. Nope, not over there. What are you doing, man? There we go. I like being up here in the corner. Judge blocks Trump's buyout program as 60,000 people have signed up. Now, pretty much what Trump has done, he has gone around, essentially Doge has done this, i.e. Elon Musk, has gone around and offered buyouts, 8 months of salary to people in the government. Like, hey, your job, you're doing, that lady over there, she's doing your exact same job. You're both making copies all day. Why don't you take 8 months of pay and go find a new job? 60,000 people are like, yep, I'll take it. Which, by the way, if your current job offered you 8 months of salary, you would probably take it. You get 8 months to figure out, you can go get a new trade. You can get a lot of stuff done in 8 months and get yourself secure before that runs out. And the second reason why a lot of people are taking it is essentially because they're afraid that if they don't take this buyout, in 6 months, Doge may come back and be like, yeah, by the way, you're fired. Now you get nothing. And the reason it's 8 months, because initially Elon Musk wanted 2 years, because that's what he did, I think, at Twitter. But there has to be an act of Congress. The executive branch can only offer up to 8 months of salary, which I still think is a pretty good deal for a bunch of people that haven't had a job their entire life, right? Most government bureaucrats, they don't do a lot of work. And so um, I think it's a pretty good thing. And a lot of people, 60,000 people, think it is. But of course, a federal judge, probably a judge, I haven't read this yet, from USAID backed, it's not USAID, but Reuters has been taking money from the federal government as well. Let's see who the judge is. So, a U.S. judge on Thursday temporarily blocked the Trump administration's proposed buyout for federal workers until at least Monday, giving an initial win to labor unions that sued to stop it. Why are the labor unions suing to stop this? Well, it makes a lot of sense, because where does the union get their money? The union gets its money from its base. It's like a social security thing, right? If you have 10,000 people, they're all giving you $30 a month. You're fighting for their rights while living in Florida most of the year. So these 60,000 people think it's a pretty good deal. The union's like, oh my God, our entire tax base, our entire base of pay is going. We might have to get real jobs too. So this is just not working for us. We can't do this anymore. We got to sue to stop this, because they got to sue to stop everything Trump does, because Trump is so. There's that. Where's that story? Here it is. Even as the program was stayed, more than 60,000 federal employees have already accepted the buyout offer. The ruling by U.S. District Judge George O'Toole, fitting, in Boston pushes back. Of course, and that's the thing. You just go to if you're a conservative, you file suit in Texas, West Virginia, or Florida. If you're a liberal, you file suit in New York, Boston, or California. You just look for right. You just look for a friendly judge, and you're going to get a ruling. That's how bad and partisan this whole thing is. And it is the amount of money that is being wasted. Even though you could get rid of all of it, the mandatory spending is what is really going to bring this whole thing down. But that's a different story for a different video. O'Toole opted to delay the buyout further or block it on a more permanent basis when he considers the legal challenge by unions at a hearing Monday. The White House said employees could submit plans to leave through 11:59. The buyout is an effort is part of the far-reaching plan by Trump and the president to rein in and reduce the size of the federal bureaucracy. Honestly, this should probably happen once a year. I was hearing other people talk about this today. This should be happening at least once a year. If you're not doing your job, you should not get to stay making $75, $85, $110, $150,000, $200,000 a year if you bring no value to the table. And the only value is you're a government employee. That's not the way this should work. And the fact is, not a huge fan. I'm not an Elon sycophant, but this is actually a smart play. As part of that effort, the Trump House is in the midst of a dramatic downscaling of U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. The administration plans to keep fewer than 300 out of the agency's worldwide total of more than 10,000. You don't need that many people. Meanwhile, Trump's buyout proposal has upended Washington, because all these people are living high off the hog, and they're still, they're living pretty good lives in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was the only place not affected by the cough, and it was never affected by the 2008 recession, or the 2008 bottoming out, the housing crash. It's got the newest developments. It's got all of these things. And Loudoun County, Virginia, it's the wealthiest zip code right outside of D.C. That's why these people are freaking out, because they're actually going to have to go out and get real jobs in life. So you have that. Federal employees were asked to indicate whether they wanted to take part by typing in resign into the subject line. The offer promises to pay the employees regular salaries and benefits until October. Come on. I guarantee you, if somebody asks me, hey, Rick, I'm going to give you 8 months of salary and benefits if you just go do, fine, I'll go find you can get skilled in a trade in 6 weeks. You can find another job doing something else if you really put your mind to it. And you still can sit back, or a smart person says, I'll take the buyout. They find another job within a month, and then they bank 7 months of salary That's huge. That's the smart thing to do. But of course, the unions are like, no, 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 no. Tax base goes away. We got to stop this. The education department told staffers that those who accept the buyouts could see their paychecks stop at any time. Yeah. And media outlets reported labor unions and Democrats have said their offer is not trustworthy because they need that system in place. Democrats, the liberal order, even the Uniparty, they need that system in place. Some federal employees said they were heartened by Thursday's court ruling. It's a glimmer of hope that the court might help us and block the whole resignation program. Oh, I'm sorry. You bunch of fat cats sat there in 2008 and in 2020 while people were losing their job and they were begging for help and they needed to be able to provide for their kids, and you all sat high in the hall not worrying about losing your jobs because Uncle Daddy government is going to be able to just. So yeah, I get it. You're a different animal than these people. We're not talking about like a union job. We're talking about a person that sits in an office and types up emails or makes copies or is a receptionist or is a bureaucrat to a bureaucrat. You know, the person that's getting offered this buyout is the person that schedules the meeting room, making $95,000 a year to manage 5 meeting rooms in Washington, D.C. Not really a high skill job, not like a real job. So that's what we're seeing here. We're going to find out what happens Monday with Timmy O'Toole. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge O'Toole. He's not a judge. He's just a pawn. But we'll see what happens going forward with that. But that's it needs to happen. It needs to. That's right, Michael. Federal unions for federal workers, they need to be banned. They need to be banned because, and that was JFK's fault. He made that whole thing happen. That thing's got to get ended. So we're getting to our final story here on the RickCast. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me. I haven't, I really do need to listen to my social media manager because I got 200 people watching me here at the wonderful Spark by Hilton in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. If you're ever in Alabama, I highly recommend it. It's nice. It's good. It's really nice for the price. Let's see here. One last story of the day. And where am I doing? Here you go. Yeah, we got to stop that sharing. Last story. Here it is. From WIVB.com. President Trump has announced President Trump has announced a task force to end anti-Christian bias. Now, of course, people on the left are going to freak out because they're like, oh, it's a Christian nationalism. There is no group in the United States that is more discriminated against than Christians. Period. End of story. I don't care how you want to fight it, how you want to reword it. Christians are continually forced to choose between their beliefs and jobs, forced to choose between their beliefs and being able to be accepted by society, especially with the LGBTMAP movement and how they were being forced down their throat. Right? Yeah, we can get rid of the female pastor. And even that kind of abuse. But we'll take a look at this here. This is by Raquel Martin. At the annual National Prayer Breakfast Thursday, President Donald Trump announced that he will sign an executive order to eradicate what he calls anti-Christian bias in the federal government and create a faith office in the White House. Trump credits this November victory to divine intervention. I'm not going to say that. I know a lot of Catholics and a lot of Christians like to say, oh, it was divine intervention that saved Trump. And then I always like to say, well, what about the other guy that died? Did God not care about him? And everybody kind of shuts up when I say that. But Trump's going to say that. And he also attributed his win to his base of evangelical voters. According to the Associated Press, about 8 in 10 white evangelical Christian voters supported him in 2024. Now he's fulfilling his promise to them, vowing to bring religion back. We will protect Christians in our schools, in our militaries, in our government, in our workplaces. Yeah, they have been discriminated against, and they do need protections. Now, this should be a social thing. Like we should, as a society, want to enforce and uplift Christian values. But we're in such a secular, modernistic society that this has to happen. Once again, I don't like executive orders because somewhere down the line, as my guy BK will say, President AOC in 10 years will revoke this, and then we're going to be back in the same place. The president named newly sworn-in Attorney General Pam Bondi to lead this task force. So good news, everybody. Law and Order Bunny Unit is going to be protecting us in the Christian realm. She will also work to fully prosecute anti-Christian violence and vandalism in our society. The announcement follows Trump's recent decision to pardon nearly 24 Christian activists convicted under Biden for blocking access to abortion clinics. Now, of course, this will not talk about the fact that the FACE Act is what they used. It's a complete abuse of the FACE Act. Complete abuse of the FACE Act. And these people were jailed wrongly. Representative Andre Carlson of Indiana, a Muslim lawmaker who delivered the prayer ahead of Trump's remarks, said he hopes the initiative supports people of all faith. Yeah, that's great. Of course, you hope that, but whatever. Because Islam, right? Islam's not protected at all. So Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, or non-faith systems, we want to make sure you people are protected in the process. They're already protected. If it's ever Christians versus any other group, that group wins. Christians versus atheists, atheist wins. Christian versus Muslim wins. Christian versus whoever, they win. So of course this has to be brought back. Well, we're the real victims. You're not. Give me a break. I mean, yeah, there's a whole thing to talk about that. However, civil rights groups have raised concern because most civil rights groups are godless heathens that want to see Christianity destroyed. Chris Line, the legal counsel, once again, another pointless job in D.C., for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which is based off of a letter from Jefferson, nothing in the Constitution that says that, says the executive order promotes Christian nationalism and aligns with Project 2025. This is very concerning. We work to protect the separation of church and state. There's nothing in the Constitution that says separation of church and state. That was a letter from Jefferson. Okay? The only thing that's in the Constitution, because a lot of people actually don't realize that when the Constitution was ratified, several states had state mandated religions, or they had religions in their state. Best example I can give you, Pennsylvania, Quakers. That was the religion of the state of Pennsylvania. The states had official religions back then. So this idea that we have to separate church and state is nonsense. And I don't like the idea of having to use the force of government to protect Christians. But at this point, if we don't have that, if we don't use that, and that's kind of why you wanted Trump in there, the bull in the China shop mentality, where we need to be protected because Christian values and Christianity in general is constantly attacked. Look at the Christian baker, right? The famous Christian baker in Colorado, bake the cake, or else, or Christian florists, or any of these people who are ever, or whoever. Yeah, I'm sorry or who, any Christian that professes to not participate in something because it doesn't align with their values, they're instantly dragged into court. That is, let me ask the Muslim representative, has that ever happened to an Islam? No, it's never. Who else? Judaism? Come on. Buddhism? None of these other religions ever face the scrutiny that Christians do. Line also disputed Trump's characterization of the pardoned Christian activists. Of course he does, because this guy probably wants to murder every baby that exists. So the summation of this is that Trump is creating this task force to reinforce the protections that Christians should have, that every other religion seems to have, but Christians seem to not have. So, as much as I'm not a fan of using these types of tactics, it needs to be done. All right, folks, that is it for this episode of RickCast. I know it's a little faster than normal, and I didn't get into things as much as I usually do, but I do appreciate you guys being here and hanging around with me, blah, 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 because I can't talk. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all the fun things to help this show grow. Big thank you to the 233 people watching on X. Big thank you always to my YouTube guys. You guys are always holding it down and making it a great time and giving me your comments and all of that as well. So tomorrow night, there will be no show because I will be in North Carolina. But I will have a show Monday. I actually have a show from this exact same hotel because I'll be staying here on the way back. Actually, no, Monday I should be back home. So there will be a show Monday, but there will be no show Friday. But I will talk to you guys on Monday. You all stay safe out there. You have a great weekend. God bless. Until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor. Oh, I'm still here because I forgot to loop it. Hey, guys. Once again, free Dexter Taylor. Well, you were right about the Blake Lively story. We haven't gotten